Hey guys, are you looking for a sportsbook that you can trust? Well, look no further than mybookie.ag, where you can get a 50% match on your initial deposit of up to $1,000 when you use promo code DFSArmy. As a bonus, when you use promo code DFSArmy, you also get a free month of DFS Army VIP and DFS Army Beat the Bookie membership. That's a $100 combined value. So we'll help you with your daily fantasy sports and we'll help you with your handicapping. Free when you sign up for mybookie.ag using promo code DFS Army.
In 2015, an elite DFS Army Commando unit formed to bring high-level DFS strategy to the masses. Today, hated by DFS sharks and lineup sellers alike, they continue their quest to turn dope into DFS pros.
Hello and welcome to the Taco Tuesday PGA DFS podcast, presented to you by DFSArmy.com. Check us out today at DFSArmy.com and use promo code TACO for a lifetime 20% off discount. This week we are headed to the final major of the year, the Open Championship, or as Americans may know it, the British Open. Because for some reason no one knows what the Open Championship is. But everyone knows what the British Open is. So, we're not technically going to Britain. We're going to Great Britain, but we're going to Northern Ireland, to the Royal Portrush Golf Club, located right up near the tippy tip, near Port Stewart, overlooking the North Atlantic Ocean. It's a link-style golf course. And that's something you're going to hear a lot this year. We've got a lot of those on the European Tour. And it's going to be completely different than what we've seen on the PGA Tour. They don't really have courses like this at all. I know that they have some link-style golf courses like Trinity Forest, but none of them really compare to the true European link-style golf courses. And this is certainly one of them. You've got the short fescue greens. They're sort of kind of bent grass, but due to how they have to take care of them, the greens are not going to be very fast at all. It's maybe 10.5 on the stint meter at most, which would be, one of the slowest courses on the PGA Tour as far as green speed goes. But what makes it completely different is just the wild undulation. Extremely slopey course, but another thing that goes along with the link-style courses, are they as hard as a rock? So there's going to be lots and lots of roll. Bump and runs are going to be quite common. You'll be able to putt off of the surfaces outside of the green. So that should help negate a lot of people who are really bad at greenside scrambling around the green game. And not a lot of leeway here. It's not that hard of a course overall. But if you venture too far out at all, you've got like really, really rough, nasty fescue. And it's only like 4 or 5 paces off the side of the fairway. So you're going to absolutely need to be good with your driving accuracy. It's imperative. You have to place your drives. But at the same time, there's going to be lots of an advantage to the longer drivers of the ball. They're going to be able to use the slope and put a little extra roll onto it. And if you really want to look into it super hard, it's not a bad spot to have a low ball flight, low apex, but it's really hard to turn that into actionable data. Just know that the older guys are going to be a little bit more in play, the Matt Kuchars of the world. And that's something that we have seen historically at the Open Championship. Of all 4 of the majors, this is the one that's the most receptive to having older players do well. This is where Ernie Els most recently won. his last major. And, we've seen the majors just be dominated by the best golfers in the world over the last several years. And if there's going to be any tournament where you might have a bit weirder of a winner, this would probably be it as far as the majors go. And another thing that comes into play here, it's going to be a huge factor, and that's the wind. It's still too hard to tell. You're going to need to come in tonight before 1 p.m. Eastern time. I think it's 1 p.m. or 1:30 Eastern that lineups are locking. And we're going to be going over that weather because there's likely to be a T-split. We've seen that at the Open Championship before, where everyone that went off on a certain wave just kind of got screwed over. So that's something we're going to be paying some close attention to. And at the same time, it's worth noting that just, the winds can pick up sort of at random. And with it being coastal, the forecast will change a lot. We can try to look at Thursday. That's about as far as we can really look into it. It's, just expect the unexpected here. But it's probably wise to do some tee time stacks. As, it's almost not even like wise. It's almost like imperative that you make at least a few tee time stacks, just because of all the tournaments that we go to throughout the entire year. This is probably going to be the one where a wind is going to come into effect the most. And it's also worth noting that the European Tour players, this makes a bunch of sense, but this is where they're the most live. They're used to not only link style golf, which is, something that we see a lot of these PGA Tour players have almost no experience with. Guys like Gary Woodland have almost no experience and don't really care to learn too much about link style golf since they're just so used to American courses. And not really to single out Gary, of course, just an example. One of many guys that have pretty much almost no experience with the link style courses. And it's going to kind of keep me off of some of these rookies and amateurs, But at the same time, they're going to be more live than ever before. Probably going to look to people that have at least some experience. And of course, I'm going to be giving the European Tour guys a much harder look than usual. We've incorporated some European Tour stats and recent form into the research station this week as a nice little bonus. It's going to be so important. You've got a lot of European players in the event. And it also kind of obfuscates the stats more than pretty much any other year or any other event that we play this year. You see, with a big chunk of the field not having PGA Tour stroke by stroke, round by round, hole by hole type of data available, a lot of these European guys that only have a handful or no rounds recorded on the PGA Tour, and with the data kind of being a little bit dicey on the European Tour side. We get like year-to-date basic stats, driving distance, driving accuracy, greens and regulation. And I think just last year they started recording strokes gained, but they don't give it to you by round or by event, just the basics there. So, we're looking at completely unadjusted season-long numbers that are honestly against much, much worse fields than we see on the PGA Tour. And as you know, on the research station, all the stats are adjusted round by round to account for the field and, of course, the strength of the field. So, it's a lot more accurate with the PGA Tour players. But I would look to statistical measures less here than at any other event. And you're also going to be kind of looking at, it's not course history, but event history here. This is you're going to be looking at that a little bit less than other tournaments, as it's a rotating schedule. The only other time that we've played at Royal Portrush was the 2012 Scottish Open, and they have completely renovated the course since then. They've changed up some holes. It's pretty much a different golf course. We're really going to be looking at we'll kind of glaze over the event history here at the British Open. You got some guys that do pop off a little bit, and it will help to show, you know, how they do at link style courses, because most of these courses are link style in the British Open, and frankly, for a lot of PGA Tour players, it's the only link style course that they're going to see the entire year, unless they pick up some random spot starts in strong European Tour events. But yeah, for this week, we're looking at, you know, statistically, we're looking at just general pedigree, looking at long-term form sort of stats. Driving accuracy, I think, is going to be key. You're going to want to just gain strokes overall with your driver, but you know, it's worth potentially making some lineups that you know, have different scenarios in mind. So you might want to make one that, for example, you could have a lineup where the wind doesn't really pick up and it's not that bad, and allows for the bombers with very little accuracy to really attack the course, not worry about it too much. And then you might also want to go on the flip side there and make some lineups with you know, accuracy as a staple, you know, or have one where, you know, it's a real focus on greens of regulation or strokes gained approach, or one that's focused on European Tour players. I really like the strategy of making scenario-based lineups. Not the worst week to hand build, that's for sure, because I like being able to incorporate these kind of scenarios whenever I'm making a lineup. So it's final Millionaire Maker of the year. Really looking forward to that. I've been collecting a big handful. I think I ended up with like 16 tickets, literally just from dimes and quarters. Just been tacking those on to the end of all my GPP lineups. So whenever I hit a nice one there, it's, you know, I get to kind of double dip. But yeah, outside of the Millionaire Maker, still just, you know, with the major, all the contests look really good this week. And probably not going to see any good fields like this, you know, until next year's Masters, honestly. You know, the majors just have much larger contest. You know, it's on the first spot on DraftKings. I don't think we'll see that any other time. And, you know, the public's going to be completely focused on this event, I think. And it's a really good week to play. You know, if you're versed in PGA Tour golf and on DraftKings, you're going to be facing a lot of the public, as, you know, baseball's still going on, but we just got off the All-Star break there. No football, no basketball, not much going on in the world. You know, we just had Wimbledon and tennis. You know, everything's really dying down. It's the dog days of sports, you know. No college sports really going on. So the Open Championship is going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. You know, we've got all the best golfers in the world this week, as where we had absolutely none of them last week. It would have been really nice if the All-Star break would have fallen on this week instead of the last week. Then it would be like the ultimate, you know, dead zone in sports, where the public will just flood in. But I still think they're going to, in pretty good numbers. So, good week to play cash games, I think. Good week to attack a lot of the smaller GPPs. They've actually got some pretty decent payouts, but at the same time, you might want to get a little freaky with it. Honestly, it's not the best week to play chalk. In fact, this is one of the worst weeks possible to play chalk. There's no chalk that's safe. There are a lot of plays that look very safe, but it's just such a different event, so far removed from what we're used to seeing on the PGA Tour. This is the week to be different. This is the week to play weirdos. I think that the guys at the bottom of the field have much more of a chance here than they do at any of the other majors. So I say get a little weird with it. Leave some salary on the table again. Why not? Or even just try for some just different types of lineup construction. I can already tell you that the just abusing the 8K range is going to be a very, very popular way to make lineups, because a lot of the value just kind of sticks out there. But good week to be different. Or even if you do play a really chalky guy down there. Just try to mix that up with at least one kind of off-the-wall, sub 1% owned, like European Tour player or something like that. There's not too much of a reason not to. We do see, some random guys posting like top 20s here, sort of out of nowhere at like no ownership. It's just kind of the week to do that. So that's how I feel about the week. The course it's hard to really look at it like we usually do with the fantasy scoring tab, where we have it broken down by hole types, and we add up the different numbers of holes on the course that we have at each of these different hole types, and add them together and make a projection. They're probably the weakest that they're going to be all year, with the ranks kind of skewed a little bit, as a lot of European Tour guys don't have much data, but also just the elevation differences, the slopes. I mean, these slopes are insane. They make the holes play much differently than they would. You're going to see guys clubbing down quite a bit, I think, because it's much better to, just take a really safe shot than to go for it and risk, triple bogeying if you find some fescue, or having to take an unplayable lie or something like that. And also something that I've noticed, if you look at the top guys, almost every single one of the guys 9K and above have some really bad finishes at this event. Rory's been a beast here over the last 5 years, but he missed the cut horribly in 2013 and was 60th the year before that. Brooks Koepka, his first two events on the European, not the European Tour, but the British Open, they were horrible. Missed cut in T67. Dustin Johnson over the last few years has struggled mightily. Jon Rahm has never had a good performance here. Tiger Woods, 2015, 2014 is kind of a scratch for him, but it's pretty reasonable to say this is his worst major. You've got Justin Rose, who had a terrible stretch from 2010, 2013. Tommy Fleetwood, his first 3 Open championships, all missed cuts. Molinari, started off with some missed cuts here as well. Even missed the cut in 2017 before winning last year. And just going right down the field here, the only exception are guys that have like 1 or 2 starts, like Cantlay or Schauffele. You see Bryson, really awful here. Justin Thomas, really awful here. The top guys, they're almost all, one thing they sort of have in common is, they're Americans, except for Tommy, of course, but they're really long with the driver, almost all of them, 300 plus yard shooters. And, it's not only that, it just goes to show the unpredictability of this event. Of course, you got the different courses and all that, but not much is guaranteed for you. Unlike, Augusta, where you have guys that do well every single year no matter what. You've got a few of those guys, but even then, they're not safe from having like a really bad finish. So everything points to fading the chalk. Really want to get off the chalk here, and I'm going to want to play a lot of the chalk. There's one that I'm pretty much obligated to play, who I think will be the chalk, but we'll get to them as we go through this field. Yeah, maybe take 1 or 2 chalk guys and just enjoy it. Enjoy your that dusty chalk all over your palate. It's going to be delicious, but I just suggest swerving a lot this week. Just get weird with it. If you want to win these large field GPPs, that's what you got to do. And then maybe just hedge it back in cash, or you probably don't want to be betting right now. You should have betted a while ago, but there might honestly be some sportsbook bets to be made right before tee off if you notice a good tee split. That would be my recommendation for that. But onto the field here. Looking at the top golfers again, sort of gone over them a little bit. Rory Mcilroy, of course, top 5 his last 4 years here. Well, his last 4 starts. He had to miss the 2015 Open Championship, but pretty much like I had said, all top 5s, winner in 2014, and that was right after missing the cut in 2013. It's pretty obvious why he's up there. He's from Northern Ireland. It's probably a place where he has played several times. A very famous course there. He's looking like a great play as usual, but not terribly interested in a lot of these top guys. He's sitting at like 7-1 odds right now, which is pretty good, honestly. Not bad for the quality of field. Like, he is a real favorite here. Him and Koepka are kind of well above the rest of the field as far as favorites go. Koepka has been trending a little bit in the wrong direction, but Rory is actually gaining a little bit of speed, just looking at how the odds books have shifted over the last day or so. So this week, one of the nice things that we have are the make the cut props, and they're all adjusted to account for the vig, rake, juice, whatever you call it. So it'll give you a good implied percentage for making cuts, and we've got two guys that are above 90%, and they're implied make the cut odds, and that's McIlroy at 92% and Brooks Koepka at 91%. So the difference between the two isn't that crazy. You know, Brooks is $200 more expensive on FanDuel. Rory's more expensive on DraftKings by the same margin. And I do believe it should be Rory over Brooks here, even though we know how Brooks plays at majors. But, you know, Rory is almost right there with him. So looking at the last 10 WGC and majors finishes, McIlroy has 87% field rank split. Of course, Koepka's got the 87%. He's kind of insane with it, but still not that far of a difference. And of course, this is the major where you want to be playing him. Destroys off the tee, destroys with his approach game. Even not bad with the putter too. I mean, he's a stud. He's looking to be the highest owned of all these expensive guys, probably of anyone 9K or above. And it's a little bit of, it seems like a no-brainer, especially if you're just looking at the last 5 years. Anyone that's got an event history split that only goes back 5 years, they're just going to be insta-locking Rory. And even before, his struggles in the early aughts, in 2010 he finished third. Pretty much finishes top 10 everywhere that he goes. He didn't miss the cut at the Memorial by a stroke, but we've seen so many top 10 finishes from him. 68% of the time he finishes in the top 10% of field. So he beats 90% of golfers 68% of the time. And that's in 22 or his last 22 events played. So some really sick numbers from him. He has the highest upside of anyone, but his price makes it so it's really easy for him to not be in the optimal. He would need to pretty much win or get a top 3. You know how the expensive guys are here, and with how many options there are down the field. I mean, over the last several weeks, when we've had these studs in there, the quality in field just drops off big time. But there's not all that much of a quality drop off. You get $2,000 or $3,000 less expensive than him, and you're still dealing with the likes of Rickie Fowler, Justin Thomas, Cantlay, Spieth. So, this is definitely a week to be off of Rory, especially if he's going to get his ownership. Implied win percentage is 7%. It's pretty nice and all. But it means 93% of the time he doesn't win. That's definitely more likely to be the case. And pretty much as long as he doesn't win, you're fine. Right now his implied top 20 percentage, 56%. So about half the time he's going to be outside the top 20. There's no way he's optimal if he's outside the top 20. So I really don't mind that bet. Really, even if he comes outside the top 10, it's not that great. You would really need to just go ham or crush some eagles or something. He is the best with driving accuracy out of all the most expensive guys, the 5 most expensive guys in this field. But it's not by a terrible amount. But yeah, he's, what you're getting out of him. Just an excellent GPP play. Definitely not a cash game play, even though he's been so safe. It's just the ownership and the price. Probably best to look elsewhere. And then you've got Brooks Koepka. And he's a little bit of a unique case. Finished runner-up or winner in the last, 4 or 5 majors now. And if you look at his last 4 finishes, 65th, 57th, 50th, also the runner-up there. Of course, the runner-up was at a major. The dude crushes majors. He's destroyed majors, but, he's teeing up in regular events. It's like, he's pretty much has this who cares attitude, where he's pretty much just practicing out there. But once you get him in a major, and he's for real about it, he's just been so clutch, so amazing. And I think that he's going to go a little overlooked, I think. People really see Rory there. They know what he's done here. And, Brooks is okay. Had some top 10 finishes in 2017 and 2015. But he started off rough. Was just T39 last year. Compared to his performances all the other majors, it's a lot worse. No top 5s here. It is worth noting that he did start his career on the European Tour. He's got plenty of experience with links-style courses. So I'm not worried about Koepka at all. If I were to pay up for one of these big guys, I'd definitely take Koepka over Rory personally. Just seems to have that X factor about him at these majors. And I really don't mind going there. And then you've got Dustin Johnson. He's been struggling a little bit lately. He does rate out number 1 in projected round score and projected fantasy points per hole by a pretty good margin over Koepka. Averages about half a fantasy point more than Koepka per round, just in raw scoring. So that's nice to see from him. And his ownership could be in the single digits. Now, he is falling, pretty hard in the Vegas books. He's down to 16-1 right now, which is not a number we get Dustin Johnson at very often. He's had 3 bad British Opens in his last 4. Before that, he's a pretty solid top 15 bet about every single year. And the last few events we've seen from him are not that great. He's supposed to really compete at the U.S. Opens. That's his best major. He just finished T35. And then at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, he was the chalk, and he screwed everybody by missing the cut by multiple strokes. His driving accuracy is actually fine for someone that hits the ball as long as he does. So I'm not worried about him there. Off the tee approach, it's amazing. It's pretty much on par with Rory Mcilroy. The issue has been his recent putting, which isn't all that much of an issue, I'd say. That could easily be turned around here. It's completely different than what we've seen over the last few years. Some good intuition will help him tremendously, just on knowing what to do here. And I've got confidence that if people really are off of Dustin Johnson, which I still don't see because I've never seen people not play Dustin Johnson. I remember majors where he was over 40% owned. That's not too far in the past here. So a little skeptical that he'll actually be as low owned as it seems like he's going to be. But I don't mind him as a bit of a contrarian play. He's in more of a contrarian position now than he's been in quite some time. So not a bad option if you want to plant your flag there. I'd rather go Brooks personally. And then I think a lot of the field is going to go after the next guy I'm talking about here, Jon Rahm. He's been on a bit of a tear lately. He finished 3rd at the U.S. Open, and the next 2 finishes after that were both improvements, finishing runner-up in the, the Andalusia Masters. And I do believe that one was in Spain, so right in his homeland. Then followed up with a very impressive win at the Irish Open the next week. Had a really awesome Sunday. He was down like 4 or 5 strokes to Rafa Cabrera-Bello going into that final round. And, it was a masterpiece from him. He hit the ball really well. It was 4th in the field in driving accuracy, actually. And that's his weak spot. He's the worst of anyone in the 9, 10, 11K range at driving accuracy. He's known to be a bomb and gouger. And that's kind of why I don't like him this week. He's done this a lot over the last few years where he plays these preliminary events in the European Tour to warm up for the Open Championship, and then just not do anything in those. The best finish of T44. So I don't really mind that. He's not too far removed from some missed cuts at the PGA Championship and the Charles Schwab Invitational. So I'm kind of against that, of course. In GPP Showdown, strong play, I think, but I'm personally not really going to go there. I think that people are going to see his game log as a 3 and a 2 and a 1 on there, plus a bunch of other top 10s from earlier in the year. And while it's good that he has that upside and all, at 10,600, this is about as expensive as we've ever seen him priced. Only rates out 30th in projected round score. The only one of the studs up here that's outside of like the top 5. So there's of the top 6 guys, they rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 30th in projected round score. I'm going to use that as a bit of an indicator to get off of him. I don't mind that. I'll let other people pick him, and I'll just go somewhere else, which is most likely going to be a bit cheaper here. Now, underneath him, you've got Tiger Woods at 10,200. Much more expensive on FanDuel. By the way, if you're going to play Rahm, play him on FanDuel, where he's cheaper than Woods, Rose, Molinari, Fowler. A lot of guys that not Fowler, but still cheaper than a lot of guys that he's more expensive than on DraftKings. He's only $100 more than Spieth over there on FanDuel. Talk about a difference in pricing. Because on DraftKings, he's like over $2,000 more than Spieth. So, a little shocking there, but not really on Rahm. Looking at Tiger Woods here at $10,200, 11.7 on FanDuel. He's always really priced up over there on FanDuel. So I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's not his best event, of course. Obviously he's done the Tiger Slam and stuff. He's won here multiple times. And 6th last year. And, if you get rid of the injury years, 2015, 2014, during his sort of little renaissance era there, finished 6th and 3rd in 2013, 2012. And he's on yet another renaissance era here. Missed the cut at the PGA Championship after taking an extended break after winning the Masters. Because, why would you not take a nice little break after winning the freaking Masters? Is amazing. Take some time to party and all. And that may have led to him, not having the best finish at the PGA Championship, a little rusty, and he's sort of done the same thing again. He's one of several guys who haven't picked up a club pretty much since the U.S. Open, and it's okay to be a little worried about these guys. Tiger at his price, especially on FanDuel, perfectly fine fade. If he wins, you've got that emotional hedge where you're like, hey, I saw Tiger win, that's cool. It's just one of many ways to hedge your money in the DFS world with your feelings. So that's how I've chosen to attack it this week. I do like playing Tiger. I've never not played Tiger, at least since he's been healthy and doing really well. He does rate out pretty well. I mean, it's not like he's too far off. He's not incredibly overpriced. He's 5th in the field in projected round score. He's actually the best of all the studs at driving accuracy. You gotta get down to Molinari to find someone better at driving accuracy. He's been hitting 66% of his fairways, and if you remember when he came back off of the injury again last year, that's where he struggled mightily. He was hitting 35% of his fairways to start, so that's gotten back into form. His approach game's always nasty. Last 10 rounds, 1.11 strokes approach. That's nasty. That's not even counting the Masters. So, his approach game is insane. His approach game has pretty much never left him, and that's going to be important here. I do like the driving accuracy too. Honestly, just looking at it again, I really don't mind playing me some Tiger Woods in GPPs if you can get there. Play him with Dustin Johnson. That's going to be a pretty unique lineup build. You've just got to find some value deep down lower, and we'll get there. So I don't really mind Tiger Woods, but the guy I planned on playing up here is Justin Rose. Now, he is, I think he's from Northern Ireland. I know he's from England. Runner-up last year. You'd think he'd be popular, but it doesn't really seem like he's going to be terribly popular. He's been really, really low owned, all the time. Just over the last several months, he's been extremely low owned. But he rates out second in projected round score. Seriously good at majors. 85% field rank in majors. Tied for the second best mark in the field at major events. Super solid. Seriously well-rounded game. The only weak part of his game I can tell is around the green, and it's pretty much going to be mitigated. He's had a really hot putter all season long, and now he can pretty much putt from the fairway onto some of these holes, and his around the green game is pretty much only going to be used for excavating the ball out of the deep fescue. A lot of people might just take drops for that, but just playing pretty well. His irons aren't like red hot like Tiger's, but they're consistent and solid. So yeah, Rose, he keeps it generally out of trouble. That's one thing that Dustin Johnson is really good at here. Kind of going back to him a little bit, he's just really good at keeping the ball out of trouble. And lately, it's just been his awful putter. But with Rose, he's just been steadily chugging along for the last 2 years now. Occasional miscuts. He had a disappointing miscut at the Masters, missed it by a stroke, but bounced right back. And honestly, the only thing he doesn't have going for him is he's one of those guys that hasn't touched a club since the U.S. Open. So you're gonna keep me from being too crazy overweight on Rose, but I don't mind the play at all. You've got Tommy Fleetwood priced up to $9,700 on DraftKings. A bit better over there on FanDuel, where he's $10,800 or $10,900. That's not bad at all. You've got a lot of guys on DraftKings that he's more expensive than, that he's cheaper than on FanDuel. So you always want to kind of look around the sites there. But I think him being priced up like this will finally keep him at a lower ownership. He missed the cut, or he didn't miss the cut, but he just barely squeaked by at the U.S. Open. And, made it on the dot and was not good on the weekend. He turned it around with a T13 at the Travelers the next week, but, we've finally started to see people come off of Tommy a little bit. We know he's an ownership darling, and he hasn't missed the cut in over a calendar year since May of last year. I mean, this dude is rock solid with the round 1 and 2, especially round 2. Round 2 showdown god. He's actually been losing strokes off the tee and approach over his last 10 rounds on the PGA Tour. But those are actually some of his, some of his stronger splits on the European Tour stats from what we can see. Very good tee to green. That's kind of what we expect out of him. Obviously has tons of experience with these types of courses, being a European Tour golfer for the most part until this last year. Plays really well at majors, some runner-ups at the U.S. Open, 12th here last year. So my boy Fleetwood, I love him. I hate that I got to pay so much for him, but I don't mind paying a few extra bucks. Just have to go digging for a little more value, which to me is a little fun this week. So again, I have no qualms of playing these guys up here. I know a lot of guys won't, and we'll just get a really nice looking lineup, just attacking the 8K range and stuff. But Fleetwood help you be a little different, and that's not something I'm used to having come out of my mouth ever. But Fleetwood honestly will help you be a little bit different. I love playing my guy there. Yeah, he was 8th in the British Masters not too long ago. A couple weeks ago, he was 23rd at the Irish Open in his tune-up event. Don't mind him. One of the only guys in the field. I think he is the only guy in the field, besides Matsuyama, has 100% made cut percentage, and with a decent sample, like a big sample. Just a cut machine. In cash, I'd probably play him, just because he's insane with the cuts made. And FanDuel especially, good value on FanDuel. And then another play that I'm big on. See, I'm all about this 9K range. Well, I'm a try to avoid the 8K range as much as I can. It's my personal strategy, even though these plays are insane down there. But 9K range is where I'm going to personally try to attack. Now, I don't think I'll be alone here. I think a lot of people join me with Xander Schauffele at $9,500. Runner-up here last year, debuted 20th in 2017. Before Brooks got his reputation as being a king at majors, Xander Schauffele, any strong field, that's where he puts in work. He's won things like the Tour Championship, the Tournament of Champions, WGC events, and he's shown up to play big time at all the majors. Runner-up at the Masters, then third at the U.S. Open. He had one of his worst performances recently at a major. At the PGA Championship, he finished T16. That's been one of his worst performances recently. Even outside of that, he's been. We usually see him miss some cuts at normal events, sort of like Brooks does, but he's even been pretty decent at those. He hasn't touched a club since the U.S. Open, one of those guys. So I'm not really as worried about him. He's a young gun. I'm definitely big on him. 85% implied odds to make the cut. That's really not that far away from the numbers that Rahm and DJ have at 89%. It's actually better than Tiger Woods' 81%. So some nice little value with him there. Just good odds to pricing value. Probably be what keeps his ownership up there. So he's going to be part of the chalk that I'll have to bite off, but I don't know. I think his price is up there enough that it won't be too bad. So I don't mind making him core play for me personally. Then you've got last year's winner, Francesco Molinari. He started off with the exact same odds as Schauffele, but he's fallen off quite a bit from 23-1 to 26-1. So he won last year after missing the cut in 2017. Historically, he was a very, very good European Tour golfer, known for his specialty, which is driving accuracy and greens regulation. Plays very much like Stenson. Shorter off the tee, just barely above 290s, but just strikes the ball extremely well. He was pretty much an old man in a younger man's body. He's starting to get up there now. He was about to win the Masters before blowing up with the multiple double bogeys on that Sunday. So, you could be talking about a Masters winning Francesco Molinari, and I'm sure his ownership would be a little pumped up there. But you look at the odds, they're right there with Schauffele, the exact same make the cut percentage. And I don't think his ownership will be too crazy. He really hasn't been, because he struggled at regular events. Not gonna lie. And even at the PGA Championship, not very great there. But winner at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He was again. He had just killer Masters. Really hasn't done a whole lot since then. Missing the cut at the RBC Heritage, which was supposed to be a course that really suited his style. But $9,400. That's a very affordable price over there on DraftKings, and I think he'll go a bit overlooked. Now on FanDuel, he'll definitely be low owned, and I might even consider playing him there, because this price is kind of egregious at $11,400. They're really valuing last year's results, I guess, but nonetheless, just a GPP play, not really a cash game at all. Rickie Fowler at $9,300. Another guy like Fleetwood that we might honestly see low owned. We've been seeing him fairly low owned for a good while now, and his performances kind of fallen off. I'd say he has 4 bad performances in his last 5 events, or no, 5 out of his last 6. He missed the cut at the Scottish Open last week. Now, his history here is pretty good. This is probably his best major and his best chance at making finally getting a major win. He was runner-up here in 2014. Pretty much always finishes in the top 30. And he's still a made-cut machine. When I say bad performances, the only real miscut he had was at Charles Schwab, which every single stud in this field either missed the cut or finished T58 or worse. Yeah, of all the guys above 9K that played at the Charles Schwab Invitational. So that's Fowler, DeChambeau, Molinari, Schauffele, Rose, and John Rahm. They finished 99th, 58th, 75th, 53rd, 75th, and 83rd. At least Casey knew to withdraw and just get out of that nonsense. So it seems like that tournament is almost kind of a wash. I'm not too worried about that. So I don't mind playing some Fowler. For the first time for pretty much since DFS golf was a thing, he might actually be a low-owned contrarian play. Because, you're seeing guys like Tiger Woods, Rickie Fowler, Bubba Watson, Phil Mickelson, guys that the adoring public loves. They're not really getting rostered anymore because, people have gotten a sense of what they are. They know that they're overpriced on the books, but as far as DFS goes, people pretty much know their portfolio, what they're actually worth. And, Fowler, just with his recent performances, lack of wins and stuff, I don't think people are going to be too on him. And then you've got DeChambeau at $9,200. He's been playing horribly, and I kind of predicted that too. I didn't think he was going to stick around and be like an elite top-tier golfer. He'll be up there, I think. I think his career trajectory is probably similar to like a Rickie Fowler or worse. Honestly, I've never been that bullish on Bryson, but over the last two events he's played, he's looked really good, finishing 8th at the Travelers and runner-up at the 3M Classic. Really, really, really weak fields, though. And, we just saw him miss 3 cuts in a row, the RBC Heritage, PGA Championship. Really bad performance there. And then the next week at Charles Schwab, which is kind of dicey, but 35th at the U.S. Open. I don't know. Best finish here is T51 in his 2 tries. He was pretty much last place in 2017. That was bad. Lack of experience here. I think this will. He's known for being a bit of a nerd studying the course. This might overload his brain with this course. You'll see it on the coverage. What I mean when I say like hilly, the course is wild. It's a much different looking course than you're used to seeing week to week on the PGA Tour. So I think I'll mess with Bryson. I'm gonna stay away from him. Probably a full fade. He does rate out really well in projected fantasy points per round, but I'm looking at that less this week than usual. Justin Thomas at $9,100. Really inviting play there. He was top 10 last week. And his tee to green has been awesome since coming back from the wrist injury. It's been really good. His putter has been exceptionally bad, like horribly bad. Like the reason he missed the cut at the Memorial, the reason he missed the cut at the U.S. Open, all putter. He would have like posted top 5s, if not wins, at like the Travelers, the Canadian Open, where he finished 36th and 20th. If it wasn't for him just hemorrhaging strokes on the green. Now, he's been awful here, like bad. 2 missed cuts over the last 2 years, and then debuted T53. This is not a, link style golf is obviously not really for him. So there are some concerns here. Obviously, big time GPP only. Even though Thomas is one of my all-time favorite cash game plays, he's definitely ventured back into GPP territory, like his first few years on the tour. He does rate out 3rd in projected fantasy points per round, but when doesn't he, honestly? Like his numbers on par 4s and par 5s, and just his DraftKings scoring in general is so good. But I do like him a lot. I'm going to be on Justin Thomas a lot. I'll start a lot of lineups with the Justin stack. Because they're honestly looking like some of my core plays up here. And I might even make an Ustin with the Dustin, Justin, and Justin combo there. I missed when those two were the 3 best golfers in the world. That was hilarious to me. But, Justin Thomas, I'm feeling him this week. Definitely a bounce back candidate for me. Just too good tee to green. There's no way he can keep putting that horribly. And then here's a chalk alert. Chalk alert. That's it. Sirens in the background. We got a chalk alert. Patrick Cantlay could be the highest owned guy on the slate. It's hard for me to pick who will be the highest owned. There are lots of good candidates. There are 5 or 6 candidates in particular, I think, could all be highest owned. I'll just go through them real quick. It could be Rory. I doubt it's Rory, though. Could be Cantlay. I think it might be Cantlay. I came in thinking that it was going to be Webb Simpson because he's so cheap, but he hasn't touched a club since the U.S. Open, and I think people have made that known as well, but he's someone to really consider there. And then you've got Matsuyama and Stenson, who right now I think those will be the two highest owned guys, but Cantlay is going to be right there, like within a percentage. You've also got Adam Scott, $8,800. So those are the guys that are going to be like the chalk, right? So Cantlay, we're looking at like 20% ownership, could even be higher. His streak of finishes is absolutely amazing. Top 10 machine. He's a top 10 freak. I can't even count how many top 10s he's got this season. He had 4 in a row between the Masters and the Memorial. Getting top 10 finishes at the Masters, RBC Heritage, PGA Championship, and the Memorial. He's regressed a little bit at his last 2 events, finishing 21st at the U.S. Open and 15th at the Travelers, which was the last time we saw him. Debuted 12th here last year. Let's see, what percentage of the time... Yeah, go to these field rank splits here. So, your boy Cantlay, he comes in the top 10% of field 63% of the time. That is the same as Dustin Johnson. That is the same as Justin Rose. So he's got some Justin swag inside of his body. So Justin can't lay. I think he can lay it. He can lay it all over this course. Just insane upside from him. And you look at where he missed cuts, like the Players, Sawgrass. I've always said that's like one of the most forgivable missed cuts possible. Just with how that course is, all the water and all that. So, loving me some Cantlay. It's just that ownership, and this is the week to fade the chalk. 83% field rank in majors. That's right there with Justin Rose again. It's right there at Dustin Johnson. So, if he were priced, just based off of his stats and not based off of, who he is and who, the pedigree of the other guys, he would be probably top 10, top 7 even in this field. But he's not. He's down there at $9,000. People are going to be drawn to him because his game log is absolutely sexy. He's never had a bad finish here in his one event played, but no one's safe. He could just hit in the brush and that'd be all she wrote. So, I don't think anyone is safe here. Therefore, I've got to fade Cantlay just out of principle. I can't sit here and tell you guys to fade the chalk and then play Cantlay like a little... Well, I'm not going to finish that, but yeah, Cantlay I'm just going to fade. He rates out just perfectly, and I hope everyone else plays him, because I'm just not going to. I might play Jordan Spieth, which is weird. $8,900. Very good at this event. He's never missed the cut. Winner in 2017. Top 10 in last year and in 2015. 2015, he was just insane with the majors. He almost Tiger slammed. Like, we're not at that level of Jordan Spieth anymore. Like, he's projecting out horribly. He's missed his last 2 cuts. I think he just made the cut on the dot of the U.S. Open and then just crapped out a bad finish like Fleetwood did. He had the top 10 streak in a row from the PGA Championship and the Charles Schwab, which is a weird tournament, and the Memorial. That was like all on some hot fire putting. He's been losing strokes approach pretty consistently, losing strokes off the tee, just getting it all done around the green. Like, he looks like Jason Day used to look statistically. So statistically, he is not a play that rates out well. I'm literally just playing him for his ownership. It's going to be in the single digits. And his acumen here. He's always been very good at European courses, Obviously, his track record shows here. His driving accuracy has been pretty horrible, though, so I'm going to tamper it a little bit, but just an ownership leverage play for me. That's pretty much it. That and Spieth, I think, really steps up his game at majors as well. Not recently. You haven't seen that too much, but, of course, of his horrible finishes at the U.S. Open and his god-awful finish at T21 at the Masters. For him, that's god-awful. But we did see him and pop off at the PGA Championship, and another performance like that, and you could have some nice leverage on the field. So he's just surrounded by plays that everybody's going to love. He's surrounded by Cantlay, surrounded by Scott, Kuchar, Matsuyama, Stenson. We're getting to that 8K range I've been warning you guys about. So Spieth, I'm just going to be different and play him. Adam Scott, he's probably the closest thing we have to a course horse here. He's finished top 25 in his last, he's 6 out of his last 7 British Open starts. So that's incredible. Very good course history. Runner-up in 2012, 3rd in 2013, and 5th in 2014. 17th last year, right? He's coming in on a streak of top 10 finishes. The PGA Championship, the Memorial, and the U.S. Open. So we haven't seen him since. Another guy that could possibly be a little rusty. And even before that, 18th at the Masters. So he's been really good at the majors this year. I think it's going to get him really popular, especially the people that just play golf during the majors. Scott has hit for them every single time. It's been really good. However, of everyone that I've talked about so far, he has the lowest field rank consistency metric. He'd been just all right at approach, and approach is something that he has been amazing at in his entire career. Don't let me take that away from him, but over his last 10 rounds, his strokes gained approach has been red hot fire, and most of the time that would lead to me playing a guy. But like I'd mentioned, this is the place we're going to want to lean on statistics the least. And where else has he been gaining strokes? Because it's not been off the tee, and it's definitely not been putting where he's losing strokes. He's been gaining a crap ton of strokes around the green, and I don't think that stat helps you much this week at all. They're not going to be scrambling that much. It's either going to be whacking it out of the gross stuff in the fescue, or just taking a nice little easy putt down some hills. So you just got to find reasons to get off this chalk. I mean, the game log and course history, event history and stuff, it looks great. It looks like a plug and play if you're just going by that, but it's not what I'm going off of this week, and you just got to be different, however you can be. Then you've got Matt Kuchar at $8,700. He has had a few bad finishes here, but for the most part, pretty much a top 10 kind of guy. He's been absolutely crushing it this season. He's been amazing. It's got to be his best season ever, right? Finishes at 12th, 8th, and 16th at the majors so far this year, and multiple wins, several top 5 finishes, always a top 10 getter. He has been, over the last 10 rounds, he's struggled a bit tee to green, and he's just been kind of putting a lot, and he missed the cut at the Memorial, but he doesn't really miss cuts all that often. He's one of the best when it comes to making cuts. Long-term, short-term, medium-term, it doesn't matter with Kuchar. He is a top 10 machine. He is a cut-making freak. $8,700, I think that's expensive enough, and with the guys around him where I don't think he gets terribly popular, we have him projected at 12% ownership right now, and that's fine. He was just runner-up here in 2017. So I'll play a little Kuchar. This range we're going to be attacking Spieth and Kuchar, and maybe Jason Day too, I'm about to talk about, and then somebody who we'll get to. I always fawn over. You already know what I'm talking about, but let's get to Jason Day here. Jason Day, honestly, he just had a really bad time at the 3M, just like Brooks Koepka did. Just real bad time, but and also had a bad time at the Memorial. But he has all top 25 finishes in his major starts. 5th at the Masters, just going to be overlooked because of the guys around him. He's directly above 2 freakishly chalk guys and right beneath 2 other freakishly chalk guys. So he's kind of right there with Kuchar, where these players are just going to kind of spread out his ownership a little bit and possibly keep him under 10%, which would be nice. I guess 4 straight top 27 finishes here. Got to kind of stretch that stat out a little bit, but call him top 30s. 17th last year and 4th in 2015 when he was pretty much crushing every major. That was like his peak year. So, yeah, Jason Day, just somebody I'll have mixed in there. Of course, he's usually a guy that gets all of his stuff done putting it around the green, but recently He's been striking the ball. Over his last 10 rounds, gained 0.8 strokes approach, 0.7 off the tee, losing in the other two categories. That is the opposite of the Jason Day that I know and love, but I'm okay with it. Shoot, why not? His driving accuracy has even improved a little bit. So don't mind him, just to be a little bit different than the GPPs if I am going to venture into this range, which I'm actually going to try to avoid. And then, now we get down to some super chalk here. Hideki Matsuyama. No one's playing more consistent golf than him. Maybe the good Rory Sabatini for a little bit, but he finally blew up and had a horrible, horrible finish. I guess you could say that Rory, but even he's like missed cuts and stuff. Everybody has missed cuts. I guess you could throw Fleetwood in there. Fleetwood hasn't missed cuts, but he has had bad performances, like where he's barely squeaked by. And not a lot of great performances either, as where Matsuyama's been putting not top fives on the board, but he does have 6 straight top 25s, and just all made cuts, 100% made cuts over the last year. Irons on fire. They've been on fire for like a year now. That's just part of what Matsuyama does. So crazy irons. He does, really is just looking well-rounded right now. He usually gains more strokes around the green. That's actually where he's been struggling a little bit. So, statistically rates out, amazingly. He finishes in the top 50% of fields 93% of the time. Of course, makes every cut. In cash games, it's obvious. You play him. But he missed a cut here 2 out of the last 3 years. He's going to be chalk. You got to fade the chalk. And that's just how I'm rolling with it. And I'll have a heavy financial obligation to the next chalk guy I'm going to talk about here. So it really helps me get off of Matsuyama here. But riding this Matsuyama train, it's been amazing. It's paid off great. Right now, I think it's just time to not get off the train, but I'm just going to get off him for this week, hop back on him wherever he decides to tee it up next. Now's the part of, pretty much every major field where I get to fawn over my boy, Henrik Stenson. Now, him and Phil Mickelson have some history here. If you remember in 2016, they lapped the field. He beat Phil by, 3 or 4 strokes? Phil beat the rest of the field by 11 strokes, to put it in perspective. And that's not the only time that they've lapped the field together at the British Open. It's kind of uncanny. I'm not going to be sitting here playing Stenson with Phil, on purpose because of that, but, I will have 1 or 2. Just in case. But so in 2016 and then in 2013, he lost to Phil that year. And that was a really, really tough year. Some very low score, or not very low, but very high scores there. And they were just barely over par, but that's what did it. They made it look easy in 2016, but that was kind of freakish what happened there. So Stenson, he destroys links courses. He is insane at them. He destroys this event. Of course, winner in 2016, runner-up in 2013, and third in 2010. He's never missed a cut. Coming in off of 3 straight top 10 finishes, including 9th at the US Open, 4th last week at the Scottish Open. Super short off the tee, but he is a driving accuracy freak, and it's no coincidence. It's honestly, this is something he's done every single year of his career, right? He just doesn't use the driver. He does what he always does. He just sacrifices a little bit of his distance off the tee to make sure he hits 75% of his fairways. Always leads the tour in that, either him or a Colt Knost or some bull crap like that. But always that guy up there in driving accuracy and greens of regulation, and a freak with his irons. The best of anyone in this field over the last 25, last 50 rounds. You could go last a billion rounds, and it's going to be number 1, Henrik Stenson. Especially long irons. That is his jam. No one is as good of an iron player as Henrik Stenson. You used to be able to argue Adam Scott, and I'm not really counting Tiger here either. Of course, peak Tiger, no one was even that wasn't even a human being. That was a freak of nature, how good he was with his approach game. But Stenson, that's just what he's been doing over the last several years, just being a machine with the approach. Super safe. I play 30% of him every single week, no matter what. This week's no exception. I'll probably even break that. I know he's going to be chalk. I have him as the highest projected owned player on the board, just because of all the things I've mentioned. It's public knowledge out there. He sticks out as a big odds to pricing value. And the only reason he won't get uber chalk is because Matsuyama and other guys are like right there. So anyway, 83% chance to make the cut. That is higher than Tiger Woods, higher than Justin Thomas, higher than DeChambeau, higher than Fowler, higher than Spieth, higher than Thomas, and as high as Cantlay. And he's way cheaper than all those guys. Best play on the board, in my opinion. Even if I wasn't a raging Henrik Stenson fan, I would easily point to him and say, yeah, that's the best play in the entire field, because he is. Moving down to Nepal Casey. I'm going to start getting a little faster with these picks here. It's about that time of the pod. Casey, he's an Englishman. Has had a real weird history here. He always does horribly. Always finishes outside the top 40, except for in 2017. He finished 11. In 2010, he finished 3rd. Really underwhelming for the Englishman. And this year, I pretty much had the same take about him at every tournament. He was wildly inconsistent. A lot of withdrawals, a lot of really bad miscuts, but also some wins. He has 4 made cuts in a row, and that includes 2 top 5 finishes. So GPP only. Complete reverse of what we used to do with Casey. But he is destroying it with his off the tee and approach and greens regulation game. So I don't mind getting into him, really. Yeah, Gary Woodland won the U.S. Open. Had his little post-win breakdown, like we've seen a lot of winners do, at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Missed the cut pretty badly, but that's a brand new course. It's in Detroit. I literally saw like crime scene right down the road from the course when I went and visited there. I'll give him a pass. So Woodland, I don't know. He's okay. He's consistently just okay here. He was one of the guys I mentioned that doesn't really have much of a history at links courses outside of this event. We've just seen him the one time in Detroit since the U.S. Open, since he won. He's been doing interviews, talk shows, all that. Didn't have a tune-up event in Europe. Not really one to do that, but I'm not going to be too huge on him. He does rate out 4th in projected fantasy points per round for what that's worth, and the approach game really, really is solid. So not going to take that away from him at all. Probably a fine GPP play. I'm just not going to go there. Really good GPP play is Matt Wallace, $8,100. So he's a European Tour guy that likes to just win out of nowhere constantly. He has lots of wins. I think like 3 or 4 wins over the last few years. Recently, we've seen him finish 2nd and 3rd at the British Masters and BMW, the BMW International Open. And last week, his 14th at Sony. He was 3rd in the PGA Championship, which is a really good finish for him there. Popped off a few other times when playing on the PGA Tour. Haven't seen him too much. 12th at the U.S. Open. Really priced up here, but in Europe and stuff, don't mind him at all. Has better odds to make the cut than Paul Casey does, than Spieth does. So, really sneaky play, I think, honestly. Priced up enough to where his ownership might be a bit lower, but it won't be too low, because I think people will see those recent good finishes at the majors. You got Louis Oosthuizen at $8,000, who no one really cares too much about, but he loves to strike out of nowhere and do well at majors. Like that's probably the best thing you could define him by as a golfer. His FanDuel price is insane. I wouldn't play him over there. He's won here before in 2010, runner-up in 2015, and after that runner-up finish, I finished pretty much dead last in the field twice in a row, and then top 30 last year. So wild GPP play, definitely ownership sort of play. You got Shane Lowry, who's been he was tearing it up on the PGA Tour with 3 straight top 10s, but it was all putting. Has some good finishes on the European Tour as well. And there he actually gains a ton of strokes approach. So, still putting way too good to where I don't think that can persist. He's missed the cut 4 years in a row at the British Open, but, was top 10 in 2013. I don't really like him. I'm not going to play him too much. Not really a fantasy point scorer either. I'll let other people have him, but still someone to consider. Looks like he has some upside. You've also got, same price, Graeme Mcdowell, $7,900. He's played this course exactly 1 billion times. His brother is the greenskeeper here. He was touring around Dustin Johnson the other day, showing him the ins and outs of the course. So there's an obvious reason to play him. Very familiar with the area. Has some top 10 finishes at the British Open. Of course, he is a major champion, winning the U.S. Open. His last 2 events played at the PGA Tour are pretty good, 16th and an 8th at the Canadian and U.S. Open, but his tune-up events have been horrible, missing the cut horribly by many strokes at the Irish and Scottish Opens. Hopefully that keeps some people off of him. I noticed he has 21.9 fantasy points gained to the field on average, which was one of the best marks in the entire field. It's mostly all the PGA Tour, though. So I'm just going to make that little play there, just with how familiar he is with the course and all that, and with his game log at least being toned down with his last 2 finishes to keep his ownership low. You got Sergio Garcia at $7,800. He's always really good in Europe, way better than he plays stateside. Of course, he has been hot garbage at every major for the last 3 or 4 years, but he has 4 top 10 finishes here since 2011. Most recently, 7th in Spain in his tune-up event. So, not really the cheapest price for him compared to how he's been priced over the last year or so, but if you're going to play him in Europe. We know this about Sergio. Tony Finau, he has 3 good finishes in his first 3 tries at the British Open, 9th last year. But he's been pretty awful over the last few months, ain't going to lie. He was runner-up at the Charles Schwab after a really disappointing PGA Championship. And then missed 3 cuts in a row, including the U.S. Open. And, he'd been killing the majors up to that point. He had 5 straight top 10 finishes at majors. He did make the cut and do all right, T23 at the 3M Open, but not going to be too into using him. His driving accuracy is dipped pretty low to 53%, and that's scary for this course. So I like what he does at majors for the most part, but not going to be using as much Finau as I expect. I like Leishman at $7,700. He almost won here in 2015. I think he was in a playoff with Zach Johnson, and has some other top 5 finishes as well. Top 5 finish recently at the Memorial, and just finally started making some cuts after a little bit of a downswing. Of course, his driving accuracy is also a little bit sketch, and he has been doing a bit of his work through the short game recently. I just like using Leishman. He's one of my favorite players to roster. You've got Ian Poulter, same price. Was pretty much dead last year, but does have some top 10 finishes to his name. It's he either comes top 10 or just is horrible. So obviously GPP there. Another guy who's just been in some rough form recently on the PGA Tour. 3 straight missed cuts there. But before that, he had a really, really strong start to the year where he was making every cut. In his 2 tune-up events, he finished 41st and 14th over the last 2 weeks. So I don't mind him. It's looking like a much better spot for him. He's much better at driving accuracy than the guys around him. And now we can hop to the $7,600 range, where we see Webb Simpson. And I think Webb Simpson is going to be chalk, but I don't know. At first, he struck me as a guy who I thought was obviously going to be the highest owned, right? He's rolling on, I don't even know how many top 30s he has in a row, but he has 95% field rank over the last 8 weeks, 91% over the last 15 weeks. At majors, 83%. That's up there with the best of the best. And Over the last year, 78% field rank. Another one of the best of the best. The problem is he's been getting it all done putting. Like, all done putting. He's gained 1.8 strokes putting over his last 10 rounds. That is insane. I don't think it's really going to hold up. But the finishes are so steady and so consistent. It's wild. Since the Masters, where he finished 5th, he's had nothing but top 30 finishes since. Runner-up in the Canadian Open. And most recently, 16th at the U.S. Open. And that was the last time we saw him. No tune-up event or anything. 4 straight top 40s at the British Open, 12th last year. So, it's not bad chalk for like cash. It's probably what I'll do. He's going in the cash game. But I'm not really playing much cash this week. This is like the Millie Maker week, So, I don't know if Simpson's going to win you $1 million. I really don't think he will. But I think he'll take a good chunk of the field out if he has even just an okay or subpar week. And that's just what you got to hope with. So, as for pivots, he's got 2 European Tour guys at his price in Matthew Fitzpatrick and Eddie Pepperell. I think both of them are solid bets. So Pepperell was 6th last year, and he had a hell of a round on Sunday after drinking too much on Saturday night, and he was hungover the entire round. Keep drinking, Eddie. Shoot. Get at it. His last few finishes on the European Tour have been really good. Runner-up at the British Masters, and 4th in the Irish Open. So a lot of things going well for Mr. Pepperell. And you've got Matthew Fitzpatrick, who, if you just look at the PGA Tour stuff, he's not great. He's like perpetually overpriced. The reason his price is so high because he's a boss in the European Tour. He'll be like top 3 in salary. Most weeks they tease it up, honestly. He's so good there. Runner-up at the BMW International. And last week he was 14th. At the Scottish Open. I did struggle a bit at the Andalusia Masters, but this is a guy who specializes in driving accuracy, and it's going to matter here. Gained strokes all over the place if you're looking at his European Tour stats. And yeah, just the accuracy, one of the best in the entire field, I think. Yeah, I think he's the best at driving accuracy. Maybe there might be some old guys who hit it like 220 off the tee with an 80% driving accuracy or something, but I think Fitzpatrick is a safe play this week. Then another play that's going to be very popular, Rafa Cabrera Bello. So his 3 tune-up events they played before this week's tournament, all top 10 finishes. He kind of choked away a win last week. He was up 4 strokes and choked that one away, but still, the good finishes for him in a row after a stretch of really just, some made cuts, but nothing better than no top 40s, but 4 straight made cuts, just bleh. But, 94% of his cuts made, just super safe with that. And he's even better on the European Tour. He is extremely safe and consistent. So another guy's going right in the cash game, but I'm not sure if he'll be insanely popular. I think he should be. He really ought to be. I think the game log will ensure that he's up there with Simpson, honestly, and if he's even started to get some touts behind him. But just gonna have to go a different way. You can go with Danny Willett, who had some good finishes here even before his Masters win, and has put it together over the last 4 weeks on the PGA Tour. Well, at least his last 4 events played. But missed the cut in his only event since the U.S. Open. And then you've got Phil Mickelson, who is just garbage right now. 6 straight god-awful finishes in a row. But 18th at the Masters. It's the last time we've seen any signs of life from him. He's made 40% of his cuts. Driving accuracy right at 50%. So he's spraying it. And the best part of his game is around the green. So yeah, Phil looking about as bad of a play as you possibly could, but I will keep him in some. Top 25 finishes here in 6 of his last 8. The other two events where he didn't come top 25, horrible missed cuts, like last in 2012. So I don't know what to make of Phil. Sprinkles in GPP, and that's it. I'm scared of him. For cheaper, for some reason, you can get Patrick Reed, who's actually been in some really solid form. Has been playing a lot. Don't mind that. And then Tyrrell Hatton at $7,400. I really like this play. 5th here in 2016. Other than that, his Open Championship history is hot garbage, like all miscuts. It's so bad. But usually on the European Tour, he's a very, very strong play. Plays better there than on the PGA Tour. Very, very similar to Matthew Fitzpatrick in that. I don't mind him at all. He's got much better odds than guys like Willett, Mickelson, Reed I'm talking about here. Even Cabrera Bello. So, not better than Cabrera Bello, but pretty similar in value. So, don't mind getting some Hatton and GPP. Although his specialty is around the green, which ain't great for this course, but still very good with the links. Very, very familiar with that. Lee Westwood, also a guy that pretty much only plays on the European Tour and is very consistent, making most of his cuts. Gains a ton of strokes approach. Hits it 312. Oh, my bad. I'm looking at the wrong. I'm one step down here. Cause I'm like, Lee Westwood hitting it 312? No, he hits it 288 off the tee, but he still gains a ton of strokes approach. I don't mind him at all. Just had a 10th place finish at the BMW International. And some really solid finishes here in the past. 3rd in 2013 and a runner-up in 2010. Not here necessarily, but, in the Open Championship setting. Then you've got some American guys that are, have had some finishes recently, like Snedeker. He's had some high-end finishes recently, honestly, but last year here he finished like dead last. Then you've got Sabatini, who was he was a freak on a mission, making 92% of his cuts, and had 4 top 10 finishes in 7 events, just making cut after cut after cut. Made 16 cuts in a row or something, and then was god awful at the 3M. Missed the cut horribly. Odds to pricing, he's considerably worse than everyone else in this range. It's just that game log that'll get people on him. Hasn't played here since 2011, when he did make the cut, but just barely. Then we've got Kisner, who's been honestly pretty solid. Had a few, missed the cut pretty badly at the PGA Championship, but other than that, he's been on a solid streak of finishes on the PGA Tour. Specializes in driving accuracy. Runner-up here last year. He did, kind of eat shit last week at the Scottish Open in his tune-up event, but of all the guys in this range, I'll probably go with him. Maybe Haotong, who was debuted 3rd here in 2017 and has some decent finishes in Europe recently. 4th at the Volvo China Open and 15th at the Irish Open. He did miss the cut last week. Moving down along here, Thorbjorn Oleson is kind of interesting. This course has a lot of medium length par 4s. I think 4 of them are. They may not play like that, but it's worth noting that he is number 1 in the entire field at fantasy point scoring and just overall stroke average on medium length par 4s. And the sample size there is honestly decent, 28 shot length rounds. So that's just kind of an angle you can take at him. He's finished top 15 in his last 2 events played on the PGA Tour, or on the European Tour. PGA Tour has been kind of struggling, honestly. Missed the cut at the US Open. But just struggled through the PGA Championship. Missed the cut at the Byron Nelson. But 12th place finisher here last year, and in Europe he does play a lot better. Still a GPP, really shady sort of play that's all over the place, but he does have upside. And then you've got Zach Johnson, who he actually probably is the best example of a course horse here. So he has, let's make sure this is right. He has 7 top 20 finishes in his last 8 British Opens, including the win in 2015 in a playoff over Leishman and I think Oosthuizen, if I'm not mistaken. That was a really good one. So last week, he pretty much almost killed everybody that played him at his best course, where he has the best course history of anyone at any course. In America, at least, because, you could look at some examples in the European Tour where you've got some events off the top of my head, I can think of Abu Dhabi with Martin Keimer, where he's like top 5 every single year no matter what, and Rory McIlroy like half the tournaments there. But Zach Johnson, like a 37th place finish last week at the John Deere, that might as well be like a miscut, because he barely made the cut on the dot for the second year in a row there. And he didn't even like go off in the weekend like he did the year before. He just was meh. He was fine. T37 finish. He's been really bad over the last several months. Really bad. The stat still holds up that he's only missed consecutive cuts once in the last decade, but like he's borderline with it. Like he is barely hanging on. Really bad year from him. So despite the course history and the price, which looks really nice altogether, just gotta watch out with Zach, because I don't think he has upside. Maybe I don't even know about cash, honestly. It just didn't look impressive last week. Few interesting plays here in this range. Abraham Answer at 7,200. 8th at the Travelers last time we saw him on the PGA Tour. 16th in the PGA Championship. And in his tune-up event, 19th at the Irish Open. Bubba Watson at $7,200. Don't play Bubba. Don't do that. He doesn't like the British Open. He loathes it. He doesn't ever come top 20 here. 5 straight awful finishes on the PGA Tour. Sprays off the tee. There's like 1 or 2 holes on this course that will help him with a dog leg left, but other than that, there's not real much reason to play Mr. Watson, even at this cheap price. I'm gonna avoid him like the plague. And then a super hot play, who I love. This is one of my favorite players worldwide. Bernd Wiesberger. $7,100 on DraftKings, very underpriced. Of course, he was priced like that before. He has gone the frick off over the last month or so. Now, his best finish here in 5 events played is T64. Like, he is horribly bad at not only the Open Championship, but like all majors. Missed the cut at the US Open. That's a common thing. He is garbage during majors. But his recent finish is going to be eye-opening for a lot of people. That and his 55-1 odds in this range, where, you know, we don't even really see anyone better than like 100-1, even 120, 200-1. Like Kokrak's here at 227-1, and he's more expensive than Wiesberger's 55-1. So that's going to bring people to him for sure. His last 4 finishes on the European Tour. Winner last week, runner-up to Rahm at the Irish Open, and then 16th at the BMW International, winner in Maiden Denmark. He's also won several other times before that. Like, he wins all the time at the Volvo China. T14th there this year. Has a few other wins, I think, if you go back further. But, since this recent showing of just amazing finishes and form, he actually did have a period where he struggled pretty badly before that. So it's not like, it's not something that's held up over time. Now, a few years ago, he had some seasons where he was top 10 pretty much every tournament. It was looking like the next hot thing. He just, anytime he went to America, anytime he went to a major, he just was awful. Statistically, just gaining a ton of strokes approach and stuff. 73% greens a reg. I mean, it's good stuff. Just not going... I like the guy, so I'm going to play him. Eat a little bit of chalk there. He's one of my favorite golfers. I'd feel really bad. Lots of FOMO if he went off and I didn't really have him. But I've played him a lot over the years at majors, and it's just been a money sink. It's just so bad. So if you're smart, like, if you're not like me and play with your heart, if you play with your brain, I don't think you play Wiesberger, especially if his ownership breaks double digits, which I think it will. Erik van Rooyen at $7,100. This is an excellent play, I think. His stats haven't looked as good this year, but I know in the last year and the year before, just killer with the irons. I think he was up there on one of the top guys in the European Tour as far as strokes gained approach goes. Debuted here last year. At the 17th place finish. His odds are just a bit under 100-1, so he's another value. He was looking like the value in this range until Wiesberger has gone off over the last 2 years. 14th at the Scottish Open, runner-up at Trophy Hassan a couple months ago. And even on the PGA Tour, like 8th at the PGA Championship. Really good stuff there. Making a lot of cuts. Made all of his cuts on the PGA Tour. Really strong play. And I think with Wiesberger there, I think it'll lower Van Rooyen's ownership to the point where I think he's a solid play. Really, I like this like price point exactly, $7,100. I like almost every play in this range. You've got Ches Reavie, who's been, he came third in the U.S. Open and followed that up instantly with a nice win at the Travelers. Missed the cut at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, but I'll give people a pass for that. He's a specialist with driving accuracy. He's been hitting 79% of fairways. I think he's a good cash game play, even though he's never made the cut in 2 tries at the Open Championship. And it could be a little different than what he's used to. But still, I think the driving accuracy and the strokes gained approach that he's working with will help him a lot. You've got Russell Knox, who's just been kind of steady and consistent. He's a Scottish guy, knows the European Tour and all that. He's played some tune-up events. Missed the cut last week, but 31st the week before. He's fine. Not the highest upside play or anything, but he's fine. And then you've got Jim Furyk. Same price, Made several cuts in a row. Obviously a driving accuracy specialist, kind of what he does. Strokes gained approach. He's pretty much like Russell Knox's dad. All the stats look very similar there, but Furyk, he has that known pedigree. 4th year in 2014. Just continues to be underpriced, I think. And then you've got Emiliano Grillo, who's just a cut maker supreme. 89% of his cuts made. Some shaky finishes over the last few years, but he actually did play this event at this course in the Scottish Open in 2012. So that was interesting. Missed the cut over the last 2 years at the Open Championship, but debuted 12th in 2016. 7K even, you've got Sungjae Im, who I'm going to get off of. I know he has, several good finishes in a row now in the PGA Tour, but he's not even I don't think he's ever seen a links golf course. Doesn't seem like a guy I'm going to be on no matter what the price here, just because it's going to be so different for him. I will play him in Showdown though, because duh. And Andy Sullivan at $7,000. More intriguingly, $7,900 on FanDuel, where they do not have European Tour results in the game log. Remember that, FanDuel players, no European Tour results in the game log. Play Euros on FanDuel. Play Euros on FanDuel. Play Euros on FanDuel. And Andy Sullivan is underpriced. Here are his last 5 finishes. He's playing all the time, because he always does. And he's a very, very good, consistent guy who year to year is a top 20-ish European Tour golfer. Super consistent. His last 5 finishes, 28th, runner-up, 13th, 26th, 33rd. Loves to make cuts. Loves to make pars. Not the best at fantasy point scoring, but just gets it done. Makes cuts. Sneaks up there. I like him at $7,000. You got Keegan Bradley at 7K too, and he's never the most exciting play outside of round 1 Showdown, but he actually has done pretty well over the years at the British Open with 3 top 20s in his last 5 tries. Of course, when he's not top 20, he's missing the cut because he's Keegan Bradley. Thomas Peters, same price. Byung-Hun An, same price, 7K. Streelman, who I don't know if I'll really be on Streelman, but he's been playing honestly really consistent and matches the driving accuracy angle approach, strokes gained approach. And then a guy who I don't think he's ever played on the PGA Tour, but on the European Tour he's just tearing it up. Michael Lorenzo Vera. 3 straight top 10 finishes going into last week. T28 last week at the Scottish, that's fine. Has a lot of top 10 upside if you just look at that, really just look at his finishes on the European Tour. I think he's a sneaky little play there. And breaking into the 6K range here, start off with Joaquin Niemann, $6,900. He's been really hot. I'm starting to kind of come around on him. He's finally putting, and that's the one thing that he really struggled at. So he kind of has an all-around game right now. He's made 7 straight cuts with 3 top 10s in his last 4 events played. just really good stuff from Niemann. Of course, young, a rookie, probably hasn't seen a links golf course yet. Competitively at least. Maybe he has. I don't know. I have nothing for him. And then last week's winner, Dylan Fratelli. Now, I know he plays full-time on the PGA Tour now, but remember, he played on the European Tour, and when he was on the European Tour, he was seriously good. Like, incredibly good. Let me just pull him up real quick. Let's see. Fratelli. The official world golf ranking website, because that one's always nice for just getting a nice little game log on the guy. Is the website still down? Oh my, it's been down for like a day straight. So officialworldgolfrating.com still down. Unfortunate, but if you go back through it, last year, 2 years ago, he's a top 15 machine, never missed cuts. So very, very good on the European Tour. Coming off that breakthrough win on the PGA Tour. He's never made the cut here in 2 tries, but I really don't mind him at all. I like seeing him back in Europe. And you've got Billy Horschel also at $6,900. Has been, pretty solid all around with his game. We've got, 4 out of his last 5 events played, top 25 finishes. And even the one he didn't was T32, so it's pretty close. Pretty horrid history here. 4 missed cuts, and the one time he hasn't missed the cut is T30 back in 2015. Didn't even play here last year. But he's just so cheap for how good of a golfer he is. Adam Hadwin, who made the cut here last year. His last 3 events, 4th, missed cut, 6th. Usually he's making those cuts. Makes 73% of his cuts, but it's been a little bit inconsistent for him, but again, just really cheap. Jorge Campillo, who won Trophy Hassan, followed that up with a 3rd in China. 7th recently at the Irish Open, 15th in Spain. I mean, the dude puts up crazy performances. He did miss the cut pretty badly at the PGA Championship the one time we saw him this year, but other than that, it's fine. Debuted with a missed cut here last year, but the price is just cheap enough where I'll take his, it's not really his form because he has some missed cuts mixed in. It's just his upside. He's posted a lot of top 10s and he's shown that he can win tournaments. I don't really want to play CT Pan this week. He looked pretty bad last week in Europe. And since winning, he has the one good finish, but it's kind of fallen back for him. I just want to mention him out, shout him out. What's up, CT, my guy? Excuse me. And then my voice is starting to go away, if you can tell. That's how I know the podcast's going a little too long. Just want to be thorough with it, though, At the same price, CT Pan, you've got Beef, Andrew Johnston. Has been awesome the last 2 years he's been able to play in 2017, 2016, finishing 27th and 8th. Really shows up here. 4th last week, but he finished last at the Irish Open. Not actually last, but 146 out of 156 golfers. That's pretty much last, but you consider that on the European Tour, there are always some clowns at the very bottom who I don't even know how they're in the field, but don't mind. These are these dart throws that I just don't mind in a spot like this. Like Lucas Bjerregaard has been awful on the European and PGA Tour recently, but we know that he has that sort of upside in him. We've seen him do well in the European Tour. He's going to have no ownership. Why not? I love Uwis Lighton. $6,800. I hope I said his name right. The form's been shaky. He also has never posted top 40 at the Open Championship. A little bit of a concern there, but top 10 at the British Masters, top 20 at the in Spain a couple weeks back. He missed his last 2 cuts since then, but Lighton is someone who, talent-wise, even better than Andy Sullivan if you're going back long-term. He's seriously one of the best guys on the European Tour. Wouldn't be all that surprised if he had a turnaround performance. Just someone gonna sort of attack there. Statistically, kills it with off the tee and approach. Just brings it back on putting, and if that flips, why not? You've got Robert Mcintyre, who had back-to-back runner-up finishes at Maiden Denmark and the British Masters not too long ago. Kind of interesting there. Absolutely no data on him, though. The data we do have, the European Tour stats, gain strokes off the tee and approach, and loses them around the green, which is fine here, honestly. I don't mind that. Good greens regulation numbers. Now we're getting down into range where it starts to get questionable, and I don't know. I'm here to answer these questions, honestly. I like Alexander Bjork at $6,700. Usually very good with his approach game on the European Tour. Shaky finishes the last 2 times out there, but some good finishes, like 9th at Trophy Asan, 19th at Volvo, 25th at Maiden Denmark, just a dart throw there. Charlie Hoffman's finished top 20 the last 2 years here, which is kind of funny, but he's missed 4 cuts in a row. It's all just been to some god-awful putting. He's actually gaining lots of strokes tee to green. I kind of have him circled there. I love Hoffman. He's my guy, but he's been bad lately, but it's been all putter. I mean, maybe, who knows? He steps it up during majors. He made the cut at the PGA Championship and the Masters, where he always goes off every year. So such a cheap price, it's worth a shot for a quality golfer. Andrew Putnam, 4th last week at the Scottish Open. It had a 3rd place finish at the Charles Schwab Invitational. Just some off and on good performances from the guy, just so cheap. Jazz Janawatanat. Hopefully I said it right. So we saw him come 19th in China. I think he has some other really good finishes if you go back further on his European Tour stuff. He's also 14th at the PGA Championship. Not a bad little dice roll sort of play. Gains a lot of strokes tee to green, just loses a little putting on the European Tour. You've got Romain Langosk, who has 3 top 5 finishes in his last 6 events played, and all the other ones are missed cuts. So really hit or miss for that guy. You really just go, this is the point where you just go through the research station, just kind of comb through it, and just look for some diamonds in the rough here. Maybe Paul Waring. He's got some really good finishes recently on the European Tour. Not a bad player long term. Honestly, it's not like he just started doing that. He's been pretty consistent over the years. And no one will play him. Like, we're talking less than 0.5% owned, so, or maybe like less than 1%. The game log looks a little nice, but like on FanDuel, no one's going to play him. He's dead minimum price. Love that play there. JB Holmes, who I'm not interested in. He did all right at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, but he had a million missed cuts in a row before that. And this is not a place where I want to play JB, just not accurate enough off the tee. The big play here is at $6,500. You got a insanely mispriced guy, Lucas Glover. So this has been, if you listen to the podcast, follow notes and all that, that Glover's been a core guy for us, core play over the last 2 weeks. And even though he had come off of 3 straight horrible finishes in a row, what was the reasoning for that? It's like I had said, he just tends to specialize in weak fields, super weak fields, ultra good at those. Now granted, he had a freaking hole-out albatross last week, so let's tamper those expectations. He's finished 7th and 10th over the last 2 weeks. Really hit for us. Now is the time to jump way off of him. Like, way off. Absolutely no form in Europe. Has not played at the British Open in 5 years. 2013, he finished 132nd, 127th in 2012. He did do well, finishing 12th in 2011, but that's a ways back, right? He's going to be super popular here. Sticks out like a sore thumb if you're looking at odds to pricing, right? So, 6th in projected round score also. Like, it's insane. This is just a ownership fade. I don't even know if it would be too high owned or whatever. It's just does not feel right, like the right time to use Glover. You can use Christian. I'm not even going to try, man. Why does Christian have 2 A's in it? Like, it's such a weird name. Christian Bezuidenhout. There you go. Hopefully I said it right, Christian. Nice story on him. He overcame a lot. He swallowed rat poison as a child. Ended up winning the, all these things I can't pronounce here. Andalusia Masters in Spain, right? That was right after he came third, the BMW. Really has had a solid year, up and down. Another nice little FanDuel play, but even on DraftKings, a cheap price for him. And then Ryan Palmer, who, oh God, just the most inconsistent player I've ever seen in my life, but he's very consistent in the British Open, where he's finished 30th. 3 out of the 4 times he's played, exactly 30th. Very interesting, but honestly, not that bad of a play, I think. Just for how cheap he is, why not? I mean, outside of his his driving accuracy ain't even that bad. 60%. It's much better than it's been in the past. So I really don't mind him. Now you're just going through the garbage bin here. Looking at Adrian Otegui at $6,500. He's usually a pretty good European Tour bet. You could say the same about Alexander Levy, but he has absolutely no form. He is hot garbage right now. Joel Dahman, but he only plays well in super weak fields, so I'm actually gonna play Dahman here. Nate Lashley is interesting. Just won a few weeks back at the Rocket Mortgage, 25 under par. Kind of lapped the field there. Not bad upside for $6,300, and you could honestly say the same about Sung Kang, who won at the Byron Nelson, but he does have 4 bad miscuts in a row, so would definitely rather go Lashley there. An interesting play is Miguel Angel Jimenez. He has not really played over the last year. He kind of gave up, but we don't see him on the PGA Tour, or we rarely see him on the PGA Tour, right? But we don't even really see him on the European Tour anymore. Like, this is a guy that smokes cigars mid-round, just having a good old time. He's oddly good though. When he does play, he has lots of top 15 upside, and he has 2 missed cuts here from 2015 and 2014. His other remaining finishes here, starting in 2016, he hasn't played in the last 2 years. 18th, 13th, 9th, 25th, and 27th. That's honestly not bad. He's an older guy now. He's 500 to 1, mind you, so keep that in mind, but just an interesting play. I might just take a sprinkle at, not in the Millie Maker, but just something small. And then the only play I'm considering from the very bottom here is at $6,200. Doc Redman. He finished runner-up to Lashley at the Rocket Mortgage Open. Then when everyone played him at the 3M Open, he finished T134. He just had an awful Thursday. He turned it around that Friday, and he didn't look bad at all. He rates out 8 in projected fantasy points per round. He turned around the John Deere, finished T37. He was fine. He was 18th at the Wells Fargo. Lots of upside here for a guy that doesn't play very often, but when he does, he makes waves. And he's $6,200. It just opens up so much. Don't be tricked into playing Ernie Els at $6,200. Name value and former winner and all that, but he's an old man. I think he's hurt right now. Yeah, I'm not really going to venture into any of these plays. If gun in my head, I'd play Nino Bertazio at $6,100. 4th last week at the Scottish Open, 27th in the Irish Open. Generally makes some cuts. Not bad. Chan Kim at $6,100 also. He's played here once in 2017 and finished 11th, but most recently we saw him finish near dead last at the U.S. Open, so keep expectations tempered. That'll do it for this field. The rest of the guys are all old guys that won. There's Austin Connolly, who debuted with a T14 finish here in 2017. What a weird year, but he's proven since then he's not really actually a very good golfer at all. Misses a lot of cuts, but anyways, that'll do it for the pod. Good luck with the Open Championship tonight. Remember that lineups lock really early, so be sure to get them in. And I'll see you guys next week. Later.